What's going on? Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show on DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, Daily Racing Forums Twitter handle at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forums Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the preview edition. We're going to take a look at really a deep dive into one race, but then we'll also take a brief look at another race and one horse in particular that I'm interested in, the big one, the Fountain of Youth. We'll take a look at that. In my opinion, the most important or the biggest Derby prep to date. That'll be coming up on Saturday afternoon. And then we'll take a very brief look at a runner coming into the Canadian Turf, which is the fifth race on the card Saturday at Gulfstream that I am very intrigued with. We'll see if you agree or disagree. We'll show you some formulator. We'll show you some replays and go down that road. You listen to this in podcast form like most of you do. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. You're over on YouTube. Click that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. Make sure that bell icon is lit up so you get everything that DRF TV has to offer. If you're on Apple Podcasts or iTunes or Spotify or whatever it is, subscribe, give us a review, give us a review, write us a rating. Write us a review, give us a rating. That's how it goes. That's a little bit more accurate, better way to put that. Good English here. One other thing, if I could ask you, I know a number of you have already done this, but for those of you that haven't, do me a solid. I put out a little bit of a survey because I'm curious about listener feedback and viewer feedback. If you watch it, you listen to it, however you go about it. I put out a little bit of a survey. Head on over to tinyurl.com/The Matt Bernier Show. It's all one. There's no spaces. tinyurl.com/The Matt Bernier Show. Go through. It's very quick. But believe me, I wouldn't give you something that took up 5, 10, 15 minutes. It's quick. It's in and out. Maybe a minute and a half tops. Rip through there. Answer those questions for me. It would be greatly appreciated. I just want to get some feedback and see where everything stands and where everyone is, what direction people want to go, what do they like, what don't they like, and ultimately background and things of that nature. So again, tinyurl.com/The Matt Bernier Show. I'll probably be saying that and mentioning that a couple times over the next week or two before I basically conclude and wrap up the whole thing and just take a look at what the data suggests. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. Let's take a look at a deep dive into this weekend's Fountain of Youth. Again, in my opinion, the biggest and most important Kentucky Derby prep to date here in 2019. All right, let's dive into it. A little bit of a different look here this week and probably for the weeks going forward, a little picture-in-picture. I know you want to see this ugly mug while we're going through and handicapping these races. Let's go over the big one. Race 13 down at Gulfstream, mile and a 16th. So for the 3-year-olds, it's the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth. This is going to be the DRF Bets race of the day. You can head on over to video.drf.com as well as the Racing Forums YouTube channel if you want all the details for this. We will also go over this race on Out of the Gate. So if you're curious about Beer's opinion about this race, you can get that over on Out of the Gate as well. We're going to go right through kind of in post position order. For those of you that are new to me going over these sort of races and doing it this sort of way, you're going to see these two numbers up here in the corner. The 92 is what I consider a number or sort of a minimum sort of a projection going forward for a buyer. If you have not run a 92 or better, then I think you're going to need to step your game up. If you have not run a raw 114 time form US rating or better, I think you're going to need to step your game up. The good news is, so early with these 3-year-olds, they can jump up at any point, particularly horses that are trending in the right direction as opposed to those going the opposite way. So those are a couple little things. I'll get into these numbers over here in a minute. You can take a wild guess what those are. Let's just start off, though, right at the top with the number 1, Code of Honor. Now, he goes out for Shug. He would have been sort of the sexy it horse going into the Breeders' Cup had he gone on to run. Unfortunately, there was an illness. There may or may not have been a little bit of a hiccup with an injury. You can see the pedigree here. The Dam, she won the TCA. That's a sprint for fillies and mares down at Keeneland. She was also third in the Victory Ride. You see Noble Mission. To me, it gives off the impression that a shorter, sort of one-turn configuration is going to be better for this horse. And you see he exits the Mucho Macho Man. We're going to go back. We'll take a look at that replay right now. He is back here in those familiar fairish silks, sort of the green with the yellow chevrons. He's going to make a pretty significant move up in between horses. And I get it. This is into the teeth of the pace. But the way that he completely crumbles, that to me is just not a good sign. You see him up there, 3-4 path between horses, moving up again. I recognize that the internal fractions, time form US had color-coded red. It just, even right now, I see Mijos, who's just on the outside of him. I mean, you gotta go on with it. You got to at least threaten, and he does nothing. He packs it in when the real running starts. You're going to see pretty quick. He drops anchor. Mijos is going to loop up by him. Garter and Ty is down on the inside in those purple and yellow silks. He's going to come up with a run, and Trophy Chaser gives a very good account of himself out on the front end. But right about now, you're looking at this going. Code of Honor is going backwards now. again, the bigger sort of takeaway for me with this horse, you had some hiccups leading into the Breeders' Cup. That's why he didn't run in the Breeders' Cup. Had he gone into it in great fashion, he would have been a very, very sort of fashionable choice to try to upset the apple cart. Instead, he doesn't go there, and he's put away until the beginning of January. And there was even some talk for a bit about Shug saying, well, we like how he's going. Maybe we'll run in the Remsen. They didn't choose to go there. Ultimately, they went for this. And this, to me, is just a complete non-effort. It was just very, very disappointing. So I look at this and say, you know what? At the end of the day, he could certainly move forward. He earned a 90 as a 2-year-old in the Champagne. He can certainly move forward. I don't want to have any part of him. He might be a decent enough number here. Perhaps this is one of the last times you get a good number on him. To me, the effort was just so bad in the Mucho Macho Man. He needs to prove to me that he can still run. And he's not just a coach's 2-year-old. And I know that sounds crazy coming from Shug's barn, but to me, Code of Honor, he's a horse. If he wins, I will lose. Number 2 is Epic Dreamer. Now, Epic Dreamer comes out of the Holy Bull. The Holy Bull is going to be a very fascinating race to go through and dissect because he and Everfast, the top 2 finishers, Everfast was the second place finisher. Harvey Wallbanger won the race. But Epic Dreamer ended up finishing 4th. These 2 horses, 2 of the top 4, they come back in this spot. There's also another runner that's going to exit that race and run here. We really won't go into him too much. The big thing for me, this race as a whole, I wrote this down back when I first recapped it. I'm unsure of the quality of the race. That was back on February the 4th, just simply because you had Maximus Mischief, who didn't really, he was just disappointing. Now he's injured. He's off the Derby trail. Harvey Wallbanger, a horse that was 29-1. He came up the wood, perfect trip, X, Y, and Z. Then you had Epic Dreamer, who I didn't love coming into this spot. He went out there, cut out legitimate fractions, and look, he stuck around, but he got a little bit tired at the end. And you had Everfast, who was 1,000,000-1, and it looked like on the far turn he was in deep water. We're going to go to that replay right now. You have this horse out here on the front end. This is Epic Dreamer. The number 4 is Everfast. You see he's 99-1. We're going to let the tape run. And again, this is just the kind of race that makes me wonder when you see the 8 horse, who's 4-5, Maximus Mischief, and he's all out. And again, he exited this race not in great shape, a little bit of an injury. But no one's really doing any running with the exception of Harvey Wallbanger. You can see him. He's the number 5 shooting up the wood right now. But on the far turn, it looked like Everfast was going to run up the track. And instead, he's going to angle out into the clear and actually come on with a belated run and make this thing a race at the very end. You see him finishing. Look, he's finishing well. Don't get me wrong. By the way, Mijos is back here, not flattering Code of Honor by any stretch of the imagination. The difficult thing for me here is to sit here and say, okay, well, do I really want to just totally knock a horse that has run well? First start off with a little bit of a layoff, show some speed. I'm talking particularly about Epic Dreamer. And say, you know what, I don't like your chances moving forward. I think this horse has ability. I just don't know that this is his game. I don't want to find out that this isn't his game. I don't need this horse. He's going to be a big number. If you like him, great. And he has some things going for him. Again, second off the bench, you figure the pace is going to be a little bit different. I think it's going to be fast, but if he can show that he can sit a little bit, which I'm not convinced he can, Epic Dreamer, there's just not a heck of a lot there for me to be thrilled with. Now, as far as Everfast is concerned, we'll quickly roll down to him. Where is he? He's all the way down the bottom here. Look, he ran fine. You see here I have written down game at the end, unsure overall, simply because he was 130-1. I mean, usually that is not a hallmark of a good race. He had a big pace to run at. He was mid-pack. He was all out on the far turn. And he still somehow rallied and only lost by a length. I'm taking the opinion going into Saturday that the Holy Bull is a negative key race. I don't want anybody coming out of it. And again, you see Mijos, who was mid-pack there, finishing up. I think he's going to be better going shorter, but he certainly didn't flatter Code of Honor. So that basically means that the first 3 horses I've talked about here, not thrilled with their chances. The 3 horses, Gladiator King, he was one of those other ones exiting the Holy Bull. I picked him in the Texas Glitter last week and thought he ran fine. But turf sprint, he's certainly shown anyway that he's better at that. And why are we wheeling him back in a week? Doing something that he is just completely overmatched with. I want no part of this horse. He should be a 200-1 in here. The number 4 horse is Bourbon War. I'm quite a fan of Bourbon War. I think this is a talented horse from Mark Henning. Irad Ortiz retains the mount. You can see from a pedigree standpoint, he's by Tappet. His mom is My Conquistador. Now, she won the Alcibiades as a 2-year-old. She won the Summer Stakes on grass as a 2-year-old. I think she was quality on turf. I think she just happened to catch the right field as a 2-year-old on dirt. And I believe, I could be wrong, was that synthetic? Off the top of my head, I don't remember. But at the end of the day, I think she was better on grass than she was on the main track, whether it was synth or on the main track. When you go through, though, and look and see what this horse ran against in his most recent start, and keep in mind, this was his first start off of a little bit of a layoff, first start down in South Florida. He didn't really defeat much. The fourth place finisher came back and earned an 83 buyer. The runner-up a 73 in a stakes race. I believe that was at Oaklawn. The pedigree is there. The numbers are respectable. These are numbers that I believe would translate and you could project a forward move. Visually, that's probably the thing that I like the most. You're going to take a look at the 6 horse right here with the red top here and kind of the cream-colored midsection. It's going to be splitting horses, and this, to me, this is not a comfortable position for an early horse or a young horse, inexperienced horse to be in. But you see him moving up between horses very comfortably. Arad doesn't really have to get into him too much. And eventually Arad's going to make the right call. They're going to split horses. They're going to angle out into the clear. And he's going to go on very professionally. And that, to me, is the thing that I am most intrigued with by this horse, that he is as professional as he is. And he's only started 3 times, 2 times going longer. A mile and an eighth is his 2-year-old in his second lifetime start, and then this race right here. Then again, he doesn't blow this field away, but he does it professionally enough, and I thought it was a solid effort. Again, from a number standpoint, he is a hair on the slow side, but I mean, I'm talking a hair slow, and I'm expecting him to move forward. I think he's going to run well here. I picked him second. I toyed with picking him first because I do like this horse. I think there's ability here. Who knows? Maybe down the road he's going to end up being a grass horse or something else, but for right now, I think he's a promising enough 3-year-old that you at least want to see what you've got here. I think he is a genuine contender. Number 5 is Vekoma. Now, Vekoma was one of the more fancied 2-year-olds last year in 2018. He did not run in the Breeders' Cup. They ran him in the Nashua up at Aqueduct, going a 1-turn mile, stretching out, facing winners for the first time, going from 6 furlongs to a flat mile. You can see his dam, Mona de Mama. She won the Humana Distaff, which is a grade 1, and the Las Flores, which is a grade 3. Both of those 1-turn configuration. One is a flat mile. No, I'm sorry. The Humana Distaff 7/8 of a mile. And the Las Flores, I believe, is 6 furlongs or 6.5. Not a great formulator fact here for George Weaver. Past 5 years, winner last out, 61 to 180 day layoff. Only 1 for 13, 5 in the money with a 120 ROI. You get first-time Lasix, and more importantly, if you like this horse, you need to be looking at this and see who he ran against. He ran against Network Effect, who unfortunately is off the trail. He earned a 94 buyer. And in the next start, Call Paul, who, again, keep in mind, was 7 lengths behind the runner-up in that Nashua, he came back and earned an 86 in his next start winning. So the quality is there for what this horse defeated. Now, visually, this is about as comfortable a trip as you're going to find. He's out here 3 wide, 4 wide in the clear. He's going to get pushed along, roll up, pass Call Paul, pass factor it in, and he's going to very easily repel Network Effect. The concern I have is, and it is very difficult to see here, I could pull up a head-on, but if you're curious, you can find the head-on. Watch, he's a little bit late with the lead change. You see him kind of floundering around. Vekoma has got what I kind of coined, Ilman and I have spoken about it, he's got a bit of a paddle on him. This left front leg, and I was tweeting back and forth with Bruno DiGiulio, who's a clocker and a workout analyst, and we both kind of, he acknowledged it, and I said, boy, you're not kidding about the paddle. That left front is just absolutely swimming out there, and, you know, it's not certainly not a disaster. It doesn't mean that the horse is incapable of running or winning, as evidenced by the 2 lifetime starts. It just makes me look at it and wonder a little bit. That's, you know, it's all about mechanics to me. That was one of the things I said back to Bruno. I said, you know, this is no different. The athletes in this sport are no different than the athletes in other sports. Whether you're a quarterback, whether you're a pitcher, whether you're a hitter in baseball, whether you're shooting in basketball, whatever it is. Mechanics go a long way. And for you to be able to overcome poor mechanics, you need to be an exceptional talent. And maybe that is Vekoma. But it is just one of those things that I look at and I go, I don't know if I love that. And then I look at the mother, and as good as she was a 1-turn type. Off this kind of layoff, I know you've got this big bullet in your back pocket here. I just want to see what we're going to get from Vekoma. Who knows? Maybe he moves forward, earns a triple-digit buyer, and he's the bee's knees. I just want to watch one at what's going to be sort of probably the second choice in this race. Number 6 is Signal Man. Signal Man ran a good 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year. We're going to go back, take a look at that replay right now. You're going to see him warming up from the back of the pack. He's down here in sort of the yellow and maroon silks, if this would load for me. I'm going to try it one more time. It's the only problem with all these windows open. Things get a little bit bogged down. Here we go. So you're going to see him coming through here, breaking from post 14. This is no bargain, or 13, excuse me. He's in the yellow silks with sort of the maroon sort of sleeves and stripes. He's going to weave through, and ultimately this horse is going to finish third. This is a solid effort. I don't think it was a spectacular effort. I've gone on record a number of times saying I don't know how good the Breeders' Cup Juvenile was last year. You see Game Winner out there, the undefeated champion, but you see the horse that ran up to him. I mean, we know what K-Next Go is a little bit at this point. I know Signal Man's running on at the end. To me, as a whole, I don't know how good that race is. Then he came back, and to his credit, he won the Kentucky Jockey Club. And I've said it before, a number of these horses, after the Breeders' Cup, you don't get their best effort. They were cranked up and ready to go for that one. He at least came back and won. I thought it was a good effort. Not a great field that he beat. Plusca Parfait, Limonite, they're doing their thing down in Louisiana, but not spectacular. Signal Man is the kind of horse, to me, I think he's going to be farther back. I think he's going to be more sort of in a position similar to this one here in the Juvenile as opposed to the Kentucky Jockey Club. Keep in mind also, the Kentucky Jockey Club was run over a sloppy sealed racing surface, which he clearly likes. Signal Man, if you think the pace is going to be hot, which on paper it should be, he's one that can certainly come with a bit of a run. He, to me, is more of an underneath type. I wouldn't be thrilled with using him on top, but again, I can understand anyone that looks at it and says there's appeal there. The 7 is the big horse, and genuinely sort of potentially the X factor of the 3-year-olds right now. Hidden Scroll for Bill Mott, because I've said it before, the 3-year-olds, I'm not thrilled with any of them right now. I shouldn't say any of them. I'm not thrilled with them as a whole. I think there are certain ones that are starting to show a little bit of potential, but as a whole, this group so far, I'm very lukewarm on. Hidden Scroll from a numbers standpoint is about as good as you're going to find. A 104 in a career debut and a 119 as far as a raw Timeform US rating. The other important thing to keep in mind about this, if we were just talking about numbers before we get into all the sort of breakdown about this race, the 4th place finisher came back and earned a 91 buyer in his next start. And take a look at the gaps. 14 lengths from first to second, almost 4 lengths from second to third. That at least makes me wonder, is this number legitimate? The performance itself was spectacular. Here we go. You see the fractions. He's already gone sub 45 for a half mile, and he's out here, and he's just cruising on the front end. Joel Rosario's not asking him to do anything, nor should he. The only thing, and I say he's not asking him to do anything, I'm going to roll it back just a little bit. Watch Rosario's right hand. He's just going to give him a couple of reminders on the shoulder. Waiting. Where are we? There it is. There's one. He's going to give it one more time. Just a kind of a reminder. Keep him to business. Say, look, you're 100 clear. You're going to win this thing. But just stay to task. Rosario never really gets into him too much. Gives him just a little bit of hand urging. This horse goes on and does the rest. He earns that 104 buyer again. And immediately afterward, people are making the comparisons to Justify because he earned a big giant figure in his debut at 7/8. X, Y, and Z. Visually, you can't knock anything about this. The great unknown here is, and no one will know. No one will know until we get to the race on Saturday. This piece right here. Sloppy sealed track. Did he just freak out in the mud? Keep in mind this was a day that Timeform US has the Gulfstream main track intensely speed friendly. He went gate to wire. He broke from post 1. Did he really just love the wet track? Or is he genuinely this good? Even if he is, let's just say he's 85% of what he is on a wet track, he's still a very, very good horse, very promising prospect. But if he's not the 104 buyer and the 119 Timeform rating, perhaps there's a scenario where you look at it and go, you know what? This is a horse that could be beat on Saturday on a fast main track, taking on winners for the first time and going 2 turns for the first time with a rather turfy pedigree. Let's call a spade a spade. I think Hidden Scroll is very good. He is the most intriguing runner of the weekend. And I'm not breaking any news there. Everybody's going to be looking at him saying, oh, this is it. If he comes back and replicates that, you're looking at arguably the favorite for the Kentucky Derby. If he takes a few steps backward, I think he's going to have his hands full because there's going to be some other horses I think will move forward here. And then you also have this little formulator fact. Do with it what you will. I know it's a limited sample size. Past 2 years for Bill Mott, maiden winner last out, second-time starters. So the horses that won on debut and they come right back and they face winners for the next start, 1 for 14, only 2 of them have hit the board with a 67-cent ROI. This horse might be pushing odds on. I think he's going to be in that 6 to 5 range. Number 8's Global Campaign. Now, Global Campaign has lost a lot of his luster after his most recent start. This was just a few weeks back down at Gulfstream. Mile and a 16th, first time against winners. He was bet down to odds of 7 to 10. Everybody and their brother liked him. And visually, when you watch this replay, he's between horses right now in those Sagamore Silks. You're going to see standard deviation roll up on the outside and try to make a game of this, but he won't. Notice the ears on this horse. They're basically straight up. Luis Saez isn't asking him to run a step. This is visually very, very impressive to this point. And I'm sure at this point, myself included, I thought this was solid. I think he's a serious racehorse. But then you go and you see what the numbers come back. And I understand people look at it and go, 77 Beyer. Not only did he not improve, he regressed from his 85 in his career debut. And I can tell that people look at this and they say, well, maybe he's just going up and down a little bit. And who's really doing any running from the back of the pack? I love that this horse's ears are straight up here at the end. Luis is not beating him up by any stretch. He's just kind of taking care of him because guess what? He doesn't need to go into him. Doesn't need to get into the horse. The thing for me, and I've brought it up a number of times, and I'm going to continue to bring it up. Usually there's about a 20-point difference between the Timeform US ratings and the Beyers. And when all of a sudden that number is a little bit different, then you need to look at it one of two ways and say one number is either too low or one number is too high. In an instance like this, let's just use the career debut as the example. He wins by almost 6 lengths. He earns an 85 Beyer and a 106 raw Timeform rating. 21-point difference. That's right on par. You look at some of these other horses. Let's just say Hidden Scroll with the 104 Beyer and the 119 Timeform US rating. Okay, ultimately we're talking about give or take 5 points. Relatively close. You take a look at Signal Man here. The raw 106 rating with the 84 Beyer. Pretty darn close. The 106 Timeform rating with the 88 Beyer. Pretty darn close. Give or take a point or two. When you get to Global Campaign, he's paired up the 106 Timeform ratings, but the Beyer dropped 8 points? So now the question, as a handicapper, that you need to make the determination on for this race on Saturday, is the 77 actually accurate or is the 106 accurate? Because if the 106 is accurate, he's paired up both of his Beyer tops, or his Timeform US tops, and he's potential to take a step forward here. He's already proven that he can sit a little bit, and he's proven it 2 turns over this racetrack. All of a sudden, there's a lot to like there. If you think he regressed to the 77, he's not nearly as appealing. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter say it, and I'm not going to argue because I don't know for certain which number is better of the two. I'm going to lean toward the Timeform rating. I like the pedigree. He's obviously by Curlin, you can see that, but he's a half to Sonic Mule, who had success down at Gulfstream Park, and he's a half to Bolt Toro, who I think was arguably one of the best 2-year-olds we've seen in the past handful of years. Global Campaign, I'm going to be very curious to see how he's bet. He's 10-1 on the morning line. I think he has a little bit of versatility, and I think he's actually quite good. We'll find out. I could be proven entirely wrong. But I think Global Campaign's got a big chance here on Saturday at what's going to be arguably as big a number as you're going to find on him for a little bit of time to come. Number 9 horse, Everfast, spoke about him already. The 10 Frosted Grace, in the midst of the formulator debacle on Thursday morning, I couldn't get my note in for this horse, but you can see I didn't love the effort. I thought he was a little bit reluctant to split horses and go through. Never change leads. Frosted Grace is one that I don't particularly love. And Union's Destiny, if you really wanted to make a case for a horse underneath, maybe it's this one. He's by Union Rags. I thought the Smooth Air, I don't think it was great, but once they got him out into the clear, he sort of plugged along. If you're looking for a horse underneath that should appreciate some distance, perhaps it's Union's Destiny. Where did I go in this race? To me, it boiled down to 2 horses. I understand Hidden Scroll. If he replicates that, boom, most likely winner. Vekoma, if he takes a step forward in his 3-year-old debut, boom, one of the more likely winners. I want decent enough prices in a race where I don't think I think this is an opportunity race. And if the favorites win, so be it. I think you need to use them. But I think this is a potential opportunity race where you can look at some of these horses and say the upside and the potential is there. And if they take a small step forward here, they are right there with some of the better horses. And they can arguably be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times the price of the shorter prices. One of those horses is Bourbon War. The other one is Global Campaign. Ultimately, I went with Global Campaign because Stanley Huff's barn has been in a pretty good form at this point. And you can see right here, 4 from 10 with 4 other times in the money. He has a victory at the distance over the racetrack, and he's shown the ability to sit a little bit. And I have a feeling that the Timeform rating is slightly more accurate than the Beyer. I think the Beyer was predominantly based around standard deviation. If that's the case, and maybe it is, I'm gambling on the Timeform rating being a little bit more on the accurate side this time around. But again, these sort of things, it can go either way. There's no guarantee that one is going to be more accurate than the other. We'll find out Saturday after we find out how he runs. 10 to 1 on the morning line. He's a horse that I'm going to be playing. And then as far as Bourbon War is concerned, I have to be honest, I'm not opposed. I'm not one of those people that has so much pride that I'm only going to bet one horse to win. If they're both making it up 7, 8 to 1, I don't have a problem betting two horses to win. And I know a lot of people look at that going, that is asinine. You're betting, one of your bets is a loser, guaranteed, if not both. But if I'm getting the value, I'm not opposed to take a shot there. Bourbon War and Global Campaign. Those are the two for me in this spot. In order, I went 8, 4, 7, 5 Hidden Scroll. I am fascinated to see what we get from him. And the Vekoma, again, if he comes back, here's a 3-year-old and he improves. First time Lasix for George Weaver. He could be a very, very serious horse. We'll find out. But for me, I'm going to try to beat the favorites in here. I'm going to go with Global Campaign over Bourbon War in the Fountain of Youth. Now, let's transition over to a race earlier in the card that I think there's an interesting horse in there at what should be a very, very square price. Quick look at one other race Saturday at Gulfstream. Some of you in the survey, you made it clear that you're interested in some more bigger prices, some bombs. I don't know that this horse is going to classify as a bomb, but I do think he actually has a fair chance at winning this race, let alone hitting the board. I certainly think you can at least get in there and maybe sneak him underneath. And I'm talking about the number 3 horse in the 5th race. The 5th race is the Canadian Turf at a mile on the grass. It's not a big field, and it's not littered with superstars. And the other piece is there's not a ton of speed in here. I'm going to show you the number 3 horse in here, Holiday Stone. Now, Holiday Stone is not a prolific winner. He's 3 of 19 lifetime. He's not a particularly fast horse. He's run fast probably once, maybe twice. But more importantly, he goes out for a nice barn, George Weaver. Manny Franco is down to ride on Saturday afternoon. And you'll see what I have highlighted here. Now, sometimes I'll go through and do the full deep dive as far as, first turn, far turn, backside, X, Y, and Z, break, da-da-da-da. Other times when I'm just watching tape and there is a trip or something that I see and I don't want to go through and do the bit by bit, I'll just write a note like you see right there. Legit, never got chance to run, trap down on rail, complete, draw a line through. Now, what does that mean? A little bit of context. Let's go back to the most recent run. Now, keep in mind, this was in the El Prado at 7.5 furlongs. Take a look here at the number 2 horse. This is Holiday Stone. I'm going to let the tape run, and you're going to see he's ready to run. He wants to go. And, okay, it's a turf race. He's going to wait, save some ground, because there's really nowhere for him to go. You can't hold that against him. There's still a part of me that wonders, okay, we're going to be able to find any sort of a seam. Still nothing there. Still nothing there. Problem now is everybody else is in full flight, in full gear, and you have been shuffled all the way almost to last. This is a horse that I look at and say, boy, he never even got a chance. I'm not suggesting he necessarily would have won this race, but boy, you go all the way back, he just never got a chance to pick his feet up. And I think he would have run. Now again, I'm not saying he would have won the race, but I think he would have run. I think he would have at least made it close. Keep in mind also, this was a race that the pace completely melted down. The horses that came from the back, including Hembry, who's going to be in this race here on Saturday, they all took advantage of it. Holiday Stone is buried down there on the inside. I think this race is one of those that unless you saw the tape, you're going to go back and take a look at his past performances and say, oh, well, ran 10th in the most recent run. 2 starts back. He was up the track finishing 6th. Well, here we go. Reason for that I have written in here. Pace fell apart. Last move was the winning move. Where was he? A length off the pace with hot fractions throughout, according to Timeform US. Prior to that, a little bit of a layoff. You have the Seabiscuit out in Southern California. Never easy to ship. And it's a pretty decent group in there. Synchrony, Caribou Club, we know what they're capable of. Not going to hold that against him. Again, it preceded a little bit of a layoff. 4 starts back. You have a 7/8 race on the main track. That's not what he wants to do. He's not that good. He's not that kind of horse. What are you left with prior to that? You have this race at Saratoga at a flat mile. He gets the job done by a headed odds of 7 to 1 with a 96 buyer and a 116 raw Timeform rating. He defeated Breaking the Rules that day, who was going to be the favorite in this race, in my opinion. You're right there with Hembry. What I'm saying is this is a way that you need to handicap. You need to approach some of these horses from time to time. If you can go through, and this is how you get some numbers. Is he going to win the race? Who knows? I have no idea. I think he has a serious chance to outrun his odds. I believe he's 8 to 1 on the morning line. But if I can go through and say the El Prado, draw a line through it, never got a chance. The Tropical Turf, off of a little bit of a layoff, close to a hot pace, finished up the track, last move was the winning move, draw a line through it. Seabiscuit, probably against too tough, out in Southern California, mile and a 16th, probably too far for him, draw a line through it, and it preceded a layoff. 4 starts back, main track, 7/8 at Keeneland, draw a line through it. He's not a main track horse. If you can go through and kind of formulate something like that, all of a sudden you're left with this race up at Saratoga. Flat mile, gets the job done with a 96 buyer. That fits very, very well in here. That makes him a legitimate player. Also, keep in mind, not a lot of pace in here. CM Reap down on the inside is going to go. I think Holiday Stone sits just off. I think Manny's going to have every opportunity if this horse is good enough. And again, this might be one of those sneaky ones. If you're looking for a bit of a number, I'm not suggesting it be 20-1. But if he is 8-1 on the morning line, even if he comes down a little bit, 6-1. Maybe he's the kind of horse that you're using in multi-race wagers. Maybe you're playing in a contest on Saturday, something along those lines. I think Holiday Stone has a much better chance than it may look at face value. Now, let's go button things up and get you ready for what's on tap here on Out of the Gate. So there you have it. That's this week's preview edition. Deep dive into the Fountain of Youth. A little bit of a look at the Canadian turf and an intriguing runner in there, in my opinion. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the video player on YouTube or on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. For those of you that have listened live, thanks for doing so. But most of you are podcast listeners, whether you're listening or watching. If you're watching, you obviously have YouTube. You have video.drf.com. If you listen, you have Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, you name it. You got a number of different ways for you to find this thing. However you take it in. Please subscribe. Make sure that your notifications are lit up so you're going to be able to get it. Everything's going to populate, and whether it's on your phone, whether it's your computer, on YouTube, whatever the case may be. And if you have any questions, again, or anything else, you just want to pay attention to some more racing over on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. One more time, I'd appreciate it for those of you that are listeners and you have not participated yet. That little survey that I have out there, tinyurl.com/The Matt Bernier Show, all one. There are no spaces in there. tinyurl.com/The Matt Bernier Show. Go through. It is a quick and painless survey. As I made mention, I'll probably bring that up for the next week or two just to make sure that I get as much data in there as possible and we can go forward and hopefully make this thing a little bit better and a little bit more to your liking. Until I come back with the recap edition at the beginning of next week, we're going to throw it into the latest edition of Out of the Gate. You'll get some more information on the Fountain of Youth as well as some other big stakes races from across the country on Saturday afternoon. Best of luck this weekend, however you play, whatever you play, wherever you play. This has been the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show.